The Great Hall of Nexus Prime was the most beautiful place in the known galaxy. Its walls were made of living crystal that sang soft music when light touched them. The ceiling showed the entire galaxy spinning slowly above, with billions of stars glowing like tiny diamonds. Representatives from 347 different species sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle. This was the Galactic Council, the oldest and most powerful government in existence. Today was a special session. Ambassador Vorath of the Keldrani hegemony had called for an important vote. He was a tall creature, standing almost 3 meters high, with a body covered in hard black armor. His head had 6 eyes that moved independently, always watching everything at once. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked together and made sharp sounds that the translation devices turned into words. Fellow members of the council, Vorath began, his voice echoing through the chamber. I bring before you motion 7892, the formal and permanent exclusion of the species known as humans from all galactic affairs. A soft murmur passed through the gathered aliens. Some nodded their heads or tentacles or whatever they used for agreement. Others simply watched with curious eyes. Vorath continued. The humans come from a small blue planet called Earth, located in an unremarkable corner of the Orion Arm. They have been traveling through space for only 300 cycles. 300 cycles. My own species has existed for 2 million cycles. The Vorn have seen stars born and die. And yet these creatures dare to ask for a seat among us? He pressed a button, and a holographic image of a human appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a small thing compared to most species present. No claws, no armor, no venom glands. Just soft pink skin and 2 small eyes. Look at them, Vorath said with clear disgust. They have no natural weapons. They cannot survive in vacuum. They cannot breathe underwater. They cannot see in darkness. They cannot hear radio waves or feel magnetic fields. They live for barely 100 cycles before their bodies fail and they die. They are, by every measure we use, one of the weakest species ever to achieve space travel. The Elthari delegate made a sound that its species used for laughter. The Elthari were beautiful beings made of flowing light and crystal. They communicated through patterns of color that moved across their bodies. Right now, those colors showed amusement. Furthermore, Vorath continued, humans are emotionally unstable. They form deep attachments to other beings, even to animals and machines. They cry when sad. They laugh when happy. They become angry over small insults. They make decisions based on feelings rather than logic. They are, quite simply, too primitive for galactic society. More sounds of agreement came from around the chamber. A large slug-like creature from the Morth Collective gurgled its support. A floating sphere that represented the Nexi Hive mind blinked its approval dot in a small seat near the back of the chamber. Commander Elena Vasquez sat alone. She was the only human representative in the room. She was 43 years old, with dark hair pulled back tight and eyes the color of coffee. She wore the black uniform of Earth's United Space Command, with 3 silver stars on her collar showing her rank. She said nothing as the insults continued. Her face showed no emotion. She simply watched and waited. I have collected the opinions of many respected scientists and leaders, Vorath said. All agree that humans represent a potential danger to galactic stability. Not because they are strong, but because they are unpredictable. They breed quickly. They spread to new worlds like a disease. And their history is filled with violence against their own kind. He showed images of human wars, explosions, burning cities, soldiers fighting soldiers. The delegates watched with a mixture of horror and satisfaction. This proved what they already believed. For the safety of all civilized species, Vorath concluded, I recommend we ban humans from galactic travel, galactic trade, and galactic communication. They should be confined to their own small corner of space until they either evolve into something better or destroy themselves, as so many primitive species do. The vote was called. One by one, the delegates registered their decisions. The numbers appeared on a floating display for all to see. In favor of banning humans, 290-8. Against, 40-2. Abstaining, 7. The motion passed easily. Boris. Mandibles clicked with satisfaction. The motion is carried. Humans are hereby excluded from. I invoke the right of historical testimony. The voice was calm and clear. Every eye in the chamber turned to look at Commander Vasquez. She had stood up from her seat and was walking slowly toward the center of the room. Vorath made an annoyed sound. The right of historical testimony? That is an old law, human. Very old, but still valid, Elena replied. According to Section 44 of the original charter, any species facing exclusion has the right to present historical evidence before the decision becomes final. I have such evidence. The Vorn elder stirred. The Vorn were the oldest species in the council, ancient beings of stone and metal who had existed since before most stars were born. They rarely spoke, preferring to watch history unfold around them. But now, the elder's deep voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. The human speaks truth. The law stands. She may present her evidence. Vorath's eyes narrowed with irritation, but he could not argue with the Vorn. No one argued with the Vorn. Very well. You have 10 of your minutes, human. Use them wisely. Elena reached the center of the chamber and stood directly beneath the spinning galaxy above. She pulled a small device from her pocket and held it up. I have a video, she said simply. I would like the council to see it. A video? The L3 delegates' colors flickered with amusement. You waste our time with human entertainment. Not entertainment, Elena said. Her voice had changed. It was harder now, colder. This is classified military footage. Footage that shows what really happened to the Skethrony swarm. The chamber went silent. Completely silent. The Skethrony swarm. Even the name brought fear to species that had lived for millions of years. The swarm had been a nightmare, a Class 7 extinction event. They were creatures that existed only to consume. They had destroyed 11 civilizations, eating everything, people, planets, even the stars themselves. And then, 40 cycles ago, they had simply vanished. Disappeared from the galaxy without explanation. Most species assumed they had moved on to another galaxy, searching for new prey elsewhere. But looking at the human woman's cold smile, many delegates suddenly felt a terrible doubt forming in their minds. Play the video, the Vorn elder commanded. Elena pressed the button. And everything the galaxy believed about humanity was about to change forever. The holographic display came alive in the center of the council chamber. The image was not clean or beautiful like council recordings. It was rough and shaky, clearly taken from a camera mounted on a soldier's helmet. Numbers and symbols ran along the edges, showing the date, location, and the soldier's heart rate. The date was 42 cycles ago. The location was a human colony world called New Helsinki. The video showed a city. It looked peaceful at first. Tall buildings rose toward a blue sky. People walked through green parks. Children played in fountains. Then the sky began to change. Dark shapes appeared above the clouds. Hundreds of them. Thousands. The Skethrony had arrived. Several council delegates made sounds of distress. The Morath collective representative pulled its body tighter together. The L3's colors became pale and frightened. Everyone knew what the Skethrony looked like. Everyone had seen recordings of worlds they had destroyed. But this was different. This was not historical footage from a safe distance. This was someone's final moments. The dark shapes descended through the clouds. And the video showed them clearly for the first time. Bioships. Living vessels made of bone and muscle and hatred. They looked like enormous insects with wings that blocked out the sun and mouths that opened wide enough to swallow buildings whole. The screaming started. People in the streets below began to run. The soldier whose camera they were watching through started running too. His breathing was heavy and fast. His heart rate climbed higher and higher. Around him, buildings exploded into flame. Bodies fell. Smaller Skethrony creatures, each the size of a ground vehicle, dropped from the bioships and began hunting. Defensive positions? A voice shouted in the video. Fall back to the shelter zones. The soldier turned, and the camera showed a line of human military vehicles. They were firing everything they had at the descending swarm. Missiles, lasers, kinetic rounds. But the Skethrony were too many. For every creature that fell, 10 more took its place. A female soldier ran past the camera, her face covered in blood. They're everywhere. She screamed. There's too many. In the council chamber, Ambassador Vorath watched with his 6 eyes. He felt something strange in his chest. Something he had not felt in centuries. Fear. The video continued. The soldiers' unit made it to a defensive bunker, but the Skethrony followed. The camera showed brief flashes of combat. Human soldiers fighting with guns and knives and bare hands against creatures twice their size. They died one by one. The sounds were terrible, screaming, chittering, wet, tearing noises that needed no translation. Then a new voice came through the chaos. It was calm and steady, cutting through the panic like a blade through cloth. All units, this is General Marcus Webb. Omega Protocol is now authorized. I repeat, Omega Protocol is authorized. God forgive us. The soldier stopped moving. His heart rate, which had been racing, suddenly became slow and steady. When he spoke, his voice was strange, almost peaceful. Understood, actual. Omega Protocol confirmed. It's been an honor. The honor is mine, soldier. See you on the other side. The video paused. Elena Vasquez looked around the council chamber. The delegates were watching with expressions of confusion and fear. They did not understand what Omega Protocol meant, but they could feel that something important had just happened. What you are about to see, Elena said quietly, is classified at the highest level. Only 12 humans in existence have ever seen this footage. Until today, no alien species has ever known it existed. Why show it now? The Vorn elder asked. His voice was curious, not afraid. But even he seemed interested in a way he had not been for thousands of years. Because you voted to make us your enemies? Elena replied simply. And we believe our enemies should know exactly what they are facing. She pressed the button again, and the video continued. The scene changed. The helmet camera was gone now, replaced by orbital footage from a military satellite. The view showed the entire planet of New Helsinki from space. The bioships covered it like a blanket of black death. Millions of Skethrony creatures were spreading across every continent. But the humans had not given up. In orbit around the planet, a fleet of human warships had gathered. They were not beautiful ships. They were ugly and square, built for function rather than form. Compared to council vessels, they looked like toys made by children. There were only 53 of them against a Skethrony fleet of over 800. BO-ships. The battle began. Human ships fired everything they had. Nuclear missiles, antimatter torpedoes, kinetic impactors moving at a fraction of light speed. The Skethrony bioships absorbed the damage and kept coming. For every ship the humans destroyed, they lost 3 of their own. In 10 minutes. The human fleet was reduced to 31 ships. In 20 minutes. Only 19 remained. The council delegates watched as tiny human vessels were torn apart by bioships 10 times their size. Escape pods were hunted down and destroyed. No mercy was given. No surrender was accepted. And then something strange happened. The remaining human ships stopped retreating. They stopped trying to survive. Instead, they moved forward, directly into the heart of the Skethrenny fleet. "What are they doing?" the L3 delegate whispered. Its colors were dark with confusion. Elena did not answer. She just watched the screen. The 19 human ships spread out into a perfect formation. They positioned themselves at exact intervals throughout the Skethrenny fleet. Then, all at once, they broadcast a final message. "Earth Command, this is the fleet. We are in position. Cores are set to overload. Tell our families we love them. Humanity forever." The council chamber became completely silent. One by one, the human ships exploded, but these were not normal explosions. These were antimatter reactor cores, deliberately destabilized and set to maximum yield. Each explosion was like a small sun being born and dying in an instant. The radiation alone killed everything within 10,000 kilometers. The shock waves tore bioships apart like paper in a hurricane. 19 explosions. 19 small suns. When the light faded, the Skethrenny fleet was gone. 847 bioships, carrying millions of creatures, had been reduced to atoms. 30,000 human naval personnel had chosen to die rather than let the enemy advance to another world. The video paused again. Elena looked at Vareth. The Keldrani ambassador's mandibles were still. His 6 eyes were wide. He could not speak. "That was just the beginning," Elena said softly. "Would you like to see what happened next?" No one answered. No one could. She pressed the button anyway. The holographic display changed again. New footage appeared. The date stamp showed it was 2 months after the Battle of New Helsinki. The location was a planet called Karos 4, deep in Skethrenny-controlled space. But this time, the humans were not defending. They were attacking. The video showed a human landing ship descending through a red sky. Smoke and fire covered the ground below. Inside the ship, rows of soldiers sat in their seats, checking weapons and whispering prayers. They wore a heavy armor that covered every part of their bodies. Their faces were hidden behind black helmets with glowing red eyepieces. 30 seconds to landing, a pilot announced through the speakers. "Remember your training. Kill everything that moves. No prisoners. No mercy." A sergeant stood at the front of the ship. Her name was Sarah Chun. She was 26 years old. She had lost her husband and 2 children at New Helsinki. "Listen up," she said, her voice hard as steel. "Those things down there ate our people, our families, our friends. Today, we start paying them back. We're going to burn every hive on this planet. We're going to kill every creature we find. And when we're done here, we're going to find the next planet and do it again. And again. And again. Until there are no more of them left in this galaxy." The soldiers cheered. It was not a happy sound. It was the sound of people who had lost everything and had only one purpose left: revenge. The ship landed hard, and the doors opened. The soldiers poured out onto the surface of an alien world, firing as they ran. The camera footage switched between different helmet recordings, showing the battle from many angles. The Skethrenny creatures on Karos 4 were not ready for this. They had never been attacked before. They were the hunters, not the prey. For millions of years, they had spread across the galaxy, consuming everything in their path. No species had ever fought back like this until now. In the council chamber, the delegates watched in silence as human soldiers moved through Skethrenny hives with terrible efficiency. They used fire to burn the organic walls. They used poison gas to fill the tunnels. They used explosives to collapse breeding chambers where thousands of Skethrenny eggs waited to hatch. The footage showed a human soldier. his armor damaged and one arm hanging useless at his side, still fighting. 3 Skethrani warriors surrounded him. He killed 2 with his gun before it ran out of power. The third one bit through his chest plate, tearing into his flesh. With his last breath, he activated a grenade and took the creature with him. Another recording showed a medic named James Torres carrying a wounded soldier on his back while bleeding badly from his own injuries. He walked for 3 kilometers through enemy territory, killing 7 Skethrani along the way, before finally collapsing at a medical station. He died 2 hours later. The soldier he carried survived. A pilot named Yuki Tanaka flew her damaged fighter directly into a Skethrani command tower when her weapons ran out. Her last transmission was one word: payback. The elderly delegate had stopped glowing entirely. Its body had become dark and cold. The Morath representative had released a chemical signal of distress that made nearby delegates move away from it. Even the ancient Vorn elder had leaned forward, his stone eyes fixed on the images before him. "This is impossible." Ambassador Varath finally spoke. His voice was weak. "No species behaves like this. This is not war. This is extinction-level aggression." "Yes," Elena said simply. "It is." The video continued. Months passed in minutes. The footage showed battle after battle, planet after planet. Human fleets pushed deeper into Skethrani space. Every world they found, they burned. Every hive they discovered, they destroyed. The humans had developed new weapons specifically designed to kill Skethrani. Viruses that attacked their biology. Sound frequencies that drove them mad. Chemicals that dissolved their armor. A human general appeared on screen. His name was Victor Okonkwo. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and eyes that had seen too much death. "Our doctrine is simple," he said in the recording, speaking to a room full of officers. "Total species denial. We do not negotiate with the Skethrani. We do not accept their surrender. We do not take prisoners. We do not stop. These creatures exist only to consume other life forms. They cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be contained. They can only be eliminated, completely and permanently." An officer raised her hand. "General, some people back home are saying this is wrong. That we're becoming as bad as them." Okonkwo's face became hard. Those people didn't watch their children get eaten alive. Those people didn't see what happened to New Helsinki, to Mars Colony 7, to the Eden stations. He paused. "We didn't start this war, but we will finish it. Whatever it takes. However long it takes. We will finish it." The recording ended, replaced by a strategic map of the galaxy. Red dots marked Skethrani hive worlds. Blue dots marked human military positions. As the delegates watched, the blue dots spread outward like a wave, and the red dots disappeared one by one. "The war lasted 37 of your cycles," Elena said. "We lost 62 million soldiers, 419 warships. 12 colony worlds were destroyed. The economic cost nearly bankrupted Earth 3 times. She paused, letting the numbers sink in. "And we never stopped. Not once. Not for a single day. For 37 years, human beings chased the Skethrani across 3 spiral arms of this galaxy. We tracked them to their breeding worlds. We followed them to their hidden bases. We hunted them to the farthest edges of known space." The map zoomed out, showing the full extent of the conflict. The path of destruction stretched across hundreds of light years. Thousands of star systems have been touched by the war. The scale was enormous. "Your species," Vorath said slowly, "hunted them for 37 cycles? Without rest? Without peace?" "We rested when we won," Elena replied. "We found peace when they were gone." "Gone?" The Elthery delegate's voice trembled. "What do you mean, gone?" Elena smiled. It was not a kind smile. I mean exactly what you think I mean. Watch the rest. She pressed the button, and the final chapter of humanity's darkest hour began to play. The holographic display showed a world at the very edge of the galaxy. It had no name in any database. Its star was old and red, giving weak light to a planet covered in organic structures that stretched for thousands of kilometers. This was the Skethrony homeworld, the place where their species had been born millions of years ago. The last stronghold of the swarm. Human ships surrounded it. Not 53 ships like at New Helsinki. Not 100. Over 2,000 warships formed a perfect sphere around the planet. They had spent 37 years building this fleet. Every factory on Earth, Mars, and the colonies had worked day and night to produce these vessels. Every resource humanity could gather had been poured into one purpose: ending the Skethrony forever. Admiral Helena Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship, the UE's Vengeance. She was 71 years old. She had been a young captain at New Helsinki, one of the few survivors of that terrible day. She had dedicated her entire life to this moment. "All ships, report status," she commanded. One by one, the captains responded. All weapons were ready. All soldiers were prepared. The fleet was waiting for her order. "The Skethrony Queen is down there," Admiral Cross said to her crew. "The last one. Intelligence reports confirm she's produced her final generation of warriors. They're trapped on that planet with nowhere to run, nowhere to hide." She paused, looking at the red world on the screen. "I was at New Helsinki," she continued. "I watched my friends die. I heard the screams of civilians as they were consumed. For 37 years, I've carried those memories, those sounds, that pain." Her hands tightened on the railing in front of her. "Today, we end this. Today, we make sure no other species ever has to experience what we experienced. Today, we remove the Skethrony from existence." The council delegates watched in horrified silence. The Keldrani ambassador had stopped breathing. The Elthery had become completely dark. Several smaller species had already left the chamber, unable to watch anymore. The video showed the invasion beginning. Landing ships descended through the atmosphere in waves. Tens of thousands of human soldiers in advanced power armor dropped onto the surface. The Skethrony fought back desperately. They knew this was the end. They had nowhere left to retreat. The battles were savage. Skethrony warriors, some as large as buildings, threw themselves at the human lines. The humans did not break. They did not run. They simply killed and kept moving forward. Footage from a soldier named Private First Class David Obi showed him and his squad entering a breeding chamber. The walls were covered with eggs. Thousands of unborn Skethrony creatures waiting to hatch. "Order, Sergeant?" Obi asked. The sergeant's voice was tired but determined. "You know the orders. Burn it all." Obi activated his flamethrower. Fire spread across the chamber, and the eggs began to burst and blacken. It was horrible. Even the humans knew it was horrible. But they remembered New Helsinki. They remembered every colony the Skethrony had destroyed. They kept burning. The video changed to show the approach to the Queen's chamber. It was deep underground, protected by layers of organic armor and the strongest warriors the Skethrony had left. The humans fought through every defense. They lost hundreds of soldiers in those tunnels. But they never stopped. Finally, a special forces unit reached the chamber itself. The Queen was enormous. She filled a cavern the size of a stadium. Her body was a mountain of flesh and armor, with hundreds of smaller limbs and a head that held eyes older than human civilization. She had ruled her species for over 1,000,000 years. She had watched them spread across galaxies, consuming everything in their path. She had never known fear until now. The human soldiers surrounded her. Their weapons were pointed at her massive form. But she did not attack. She could not. Her warriors were dead. Her eggs were destroyed. Her fleet was gone. She was alone. Through the translation devices, her voice filled the chamber. It was deep and ancient, like the sound of continents shifting. "Why?" she asked. "Why do you continue? We offered to leave your space. We offered to never return. Why do you follow us? Why do you destroy everything we have?" The human commander, a woman named Colonel Maya Reyes, stepped forward. She removed her helmet so the queen could see her face. Her eyes were cold. "You ate our children," Colonel Reyes said simply. "You destroyed our homes. You killed millions of innocent people who had never done anything to you." "We are predators," the queen replied. "It is our nature. We consume to survive. You cannot blame a creature for following its nature." "No," Colonel Reyes agreed. "But we can remove that nature from the galaxy, permanently." The queen's many eyes blinked slowly. "You would destroy an entire species? You would commit genocide?" "You committed genocide against 11 civilizations before you met us. The difference is, we fight back." The queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was different, quieter, almost respectful. "We made a mistake with your kind. We thought you were prey. We thought you were weak because you were soft and emotional and short-lived. We did not understand what those qualities meant." "What do they mean?" Colonel Reyes asked. "They mean you have everything to lose and nothing to fear. They mean you love so deeply, the destruction of that love drives you mad. They mean you know your lives are short, so you fight as if every moment matters." The queen's eyes focused on the human woman. "You are not prey. You are the most dangerous predators this galaxy has ever seen. We simply did not recognize you." Colonel Reyes raised her weapon. "Any last words?" "Just a warning, human. Not for you. For the others. For all the species who watch the stars and think themselves safe." The queen's voice dropped to a whisper. "Never threaten what humans love. They will burn the galaxy to ash before they let you take it." The colonel fired. The other soldiers fired. The last Skethrani queen died in a storm of light and fire and the combined rage of a species that had never learned how to quit. The video showed a human scientist standing in the empty chamber hours later. Behind her, the massive corpse of the queen lay still and silent. "Genetic sampling complete," she reported into her recorder. "DNA analysis confirmed 0 viable biological material remaining. Cross-referencing with all known Skethrani samples across 37 years of conflict." She paused. "The Skethrani are extinct. Humanity has achieved total species denial." The video ended. The council chamber was as quiet as a grave. Commander Elena Vasquez stood in the center of the council chamber as the last images faded from the holographic display. She looked around at the gathered representatives of 347 civilizations. None of them would meet her eyes. Ambassador Voreth's mandibles hung loose, a sign of complete shock in Keldrani physiology. His 6 eyes had dimmed to almost nothing. He looked like he had aged 1,000 years in the past hour. The Elthery delegate had lost all color. Its crystalline body was dark and still, barely alive. The emotional impact of what it had witnessed had nearly shut down its biological systems. The Morith collective representative had released so many distress chemicals that the air around it had become toxic. Cleaning drones were already moving in to neutralize the area. Even the ancient Vorn Elder, a being who had witnessed the birth and death of stars, sat motionless. His stone face showed no emotion, but his silence spoke louder than words. Elena let the quiet continue for a long moment. Then she spoke. "You didn't know." Her voice was soft, almost gentle. "None of you knew what happened to the Skethrani. For 40 cycles, you believed they simply left, moved on to another galaxy, found new prey somewhere else. She began walking slowly around the chamber, passing by delegates who moved away from her as if she were a dangerous animal. You never asked why they disappeared. You were just happy they were gone. The nightmare was over, and you could go back to your comfortable lives, your trade agreements, your political games. She stopped in front of the Caldrani ambassador. You called us unstable. Ambassador Varth, emotional, primitive. She tilted her head. You were right. We are all those things. But you never understood what those things mean. Varth tried to speak, but no words came out. His mandibles clicked USELESSLY. Elena continued her slow walk. When we love something, we love it completely. Our families, our children, our homes, our friends. We form bonds that cannot be broken by logic or reason. We care so deeply that it sometimes seems like madness to species like yours. She reached the L3 delegate, who flickered weakly as she approached. And when something threatens what we love, when something tries to take it from us, her voice hardened. We become something else entirely. We transform from soft, short-lived creatures into the most relentless force the galaxy has ever seen. We do not negotiate. We do not compromise. We do not stop. She stood before the Vorn Elder now. The ancient being looked at her with eyes that had seen civilizations rise and fall across millions of years. The Skethrani made a mistake, Elena said directly to him. They saw our weaknesses and thought we were prey. They did not see that our weaknesses are also our greatest strengths. Our emotions give us something to fight for. Our short lives make us fight like every day matters. Our irrational attachments mean we will burn the universe down before we let our loved ones be taken. The Vorn Elder spoke for the second time that day. His voice was like mountains grinding against each other. You speak truth, human. We have watched many species rise and fall. We have seen empires built and destroyed. We believed we understood the patterns of civilization. He paused. We did not understand your kind. We see now that this was a grave error. Elena nodded slowly. Yes, it was. She returned to the center of the chamber and faced all the delegates at once. 1 hour ago, you voted to ban humanity from galactic affairs. You called us unstable, dangerous, too primitive for your civilized society. Her eyes swept across the room. You made us your enemy. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Let me tell you something about what you have done, Elena continued. Right now, human military commanders are watching this session through secure channels. They have seen how you voted. They have heard the things you said about our people. She pulled the small device from her pocket again, the same one she had used to play the video. With one command, I can mark you all as threats to humanity. Not enemies to be negotiated with. Threats to be eliminated. You know now what that means. You have seen what we did to the Skethrani. You know, we're capable of it. The fear in the chamber was so thick, it was almost visible. Chemical alarms were going off as various species released panic signals. Some delegates were physically trembling. But I am not going to give that command, Elena said. The tension broke slightly. Confused looks replaced pure terror. Why not? Asked a small delegate from a species Elena did not recognize. Because we are not monsters, Elena replied. We are not the Skethrani. We do not destroy for the sake of destruction. We do not hunt unless we are threatened. We do not kill unless we have no other choice. She put the device back in her pocket. We simply want what every species wants. A place in this galaxy. Safety for our families. A future for our children. We did not come to space to conquer. We came to explore, to learn, to grow, to make friends. Her voice softened again, becoming almost sad. All we ever wanted was to be part of something bigger than ourselves. To meet other intelligent beings and share what we know. to learn from your ancient wisdom and maybe teach you something about what it means to be human." She looked directly at Vareth. "You could have had us as friends, as allies, as partners in building a better galaxy for all species. Instead, you voted to cast us out based on fear and prejudice." The Keldrani ambassador finally found his voice. It was weak and shaking. "We did not know," he said. "We did not understand." "No," Elena agreed. "You didn't. So let me help you understand now." She stood tall, her black uniform sharp against the glowing crystals of the chamber. "Humanity does not want war. We have seen too much of it. We have lost too many people to ever want more bloodshed. But we will never be victims again. We will never let another species threaten our existence without response." She held up one finger. "You have one chance, one opportunity to fix what you have done today. I recommend you take it." The Vorn elder rose from his ancient seat. His movements were slow but deliberate. When he spoke, every being in the chamber listened. "I move to vacate motion 7892 immediately and completely. I further move to grant humanity a permanent seat on the Security Council with full voting rights. I also move to establish a formal alliance between the Council and the human race, recognizing them as equal partners in galactic governance." He turned to face the other delegates, and his voice carried the weight of 12,000 years. "I advise every member of this council to vote in favor. Strongly advise." The vote was called. The results appeared on the floating display. In favor, 340-7. Against, 0. Abstaining, 0. The motion passed unanimously. Elena Vasquez smiled. This time, it was a warm smile. A genuine smile. "Thank you," she said simply. "Humanity accepts your offer of friendship. We look forward to working together for the good of all species." As she walked to her new seat at the center of the chamber, passing delegates who now looked at her with respect instead of contempt. The galaxy quietly accepted a truth that the Skethrani had learned too late. Humans were not the weak creatures they appeared to be. They were not prey to be hunted or primitives to be dismissed. They were something far more dangerous and far more valuable. They were loyal friends and terrible enemies. And the choice of which one you got was entirely up to you. The session ended. The representatives departed. And across the galaxy, word spread of what had happened in the council chamber that the humans had arrived, and nothing would ever be the same again.